A bodybuilder laughed at a janitor until he tried to lift his mop. That's the thumbnail. That's the headline. And yes, the whole gym saw it happen in slow motion. If you're already picturing some ripped guy walking up to a harmless cleaner and throwing shade, you're halfway there. But you're not ready for what happened next. I was dressed like every gym janitor you've ever ignored. Gray shirt, tucked, too tidy, khaki pants, a cap pulled low, a lanyard with an ID that looked like it had seen better decades. In my hand was the heaviest mop in the world, the prop we all pretended to fear. It squeaked, it dripped, it looked wrong for the bench press area. I pushed a cart with a bucket that clanged when I walked, and the sound seemed to underline what the gym already believed about me. Harmless and invisible. I could hear the plates clanking, the music thumping, people counting reps out loud like metronomes. The air smelled like chalk and determination. He was impossible to miss. Big, shiny traps, a chest that could have its own zip code, and an ego that arrived 5 minutes before the guy. Ali, the gym's loudest member that day, was mid-flex on the dumbbell rack, eyes scanning for an audience. He saw me, pointed, and the grin that spread across his face had "This will be funny" written all over it. He walked over like a hero in slow motion, that kind of walk you only get when you've got something to prove. He didn't bother with niceties. "Hey, man," he said, loud enough for everyone within earshot. "If you can do this, I give you $200. Those words landed like a challenge and a camera cue. I looked down at the mop. The bucket looked heavier than it was, but it had the character. Rust, a bad wobble, a clumsy handle. Perfect. I kept cleaning the same spot like a mime doing the world's most boring show. I could see the crowd forming. Curiosity is louder than a playlist. You have to understand the setup. It's a social experiment dressed as a prank. I wasn't trying to trick anyone into danger. We had consent afterward. Everyone was laughing and knew they'd been part of a stunt. But at that moment, the crowd didn't know the punchline. All they saw was a hulking bodybuilder daring a janitor with a mop. That's what made it delicious. Ali pointed a forefinger and repeated the line, theatrical and sure. "If you can do this, I give you $200. He expected a shrug. Maybe a clumsy attempt that would prove him right. I stopped wiping, wiped my brow with the back of my hand, and in a voice that was half sheepish, half smug, I said, "You sure? You want to see how janitors warm up?" Somewhere in the chaos, my mom's voice lived rent-free in my head. "Yes, Mom, I am in the gym," I muttered. And a few people laughed, because moms always show up in public humiliation like sympathetic internal monologues. Right after that, I heard the micro-CTA voice in my head. So I told the crowd, quick and playful, "If you want part 2 of this, hit like." 2 seconds. 1 line. It's the internet. We do that. Then I set the mop against the squat rack, and the real show began. Here's the trick people don't expect. Technique does the heavy lifting. Not magic, not steroids, not costume. Technique. The mop was a prop, but the movement was pure physics and control. I squared my shoulders like I was approaching a barbell. I planted my feet, braced my core, and moved with intent. I didn't try to show off. I made small, efficient motions, borrowing foundations from deadlifts and farmer carries, and suddenly the mop didn't wobble. It behaved. The bucket didn't pull me off balance. The handle felt obedient, not threatening. The crowd watched the transformation like a live tutorial. Smirks turned to raised eyebrows. Ali's smile thinned into a line that said, "Okay, maybe not." I kept the chatter light, joked about janitorial training programs, and used comedic timing to let the tension build. I'd twist the mop like a giant kettlebell, Raise it to a rack height as if doing an overhead carry, and let the gym noise swell, clank, breathe, count. People started whispering, "How's he doing that?" Small suspense beats. A guy near the treadmill started recording. The camera phone glow made everything more dramatic. At one point I used the old mom voice bit again, louder. "No, Mom, I'm not sweeping the cardio section. This is training." The crowd broke. Laughter. A few kids clapped. Allie's jaw clenched. He wanted to be the show. He wanted to win the $200 and the bragging rights. I could see the plan hatch behind his eyes. Pick up the mop, throw a dramatic lift, record a victory pose. It would be viral. It would be proof. So I offered him a simple rule. Do it my way. Warm up, set your feet, move your hips. Don't treat it like a silly weight. He smirked and said, "Nah, I don't need your dance. Hand it here." He grabbed the handle like he owned the movement. Hand over hand, chest out. A smile that said, this would be over in a second. Then the universe likes to teach lessons in slow motion. For a heartbeat, everything was normal. Ali's biceps flexed like gods of iron. The mop was between his hands. He attempted an overhead press-like swing. Too much speed, too much show, too little base. The mop shifted. The bucket, which had been acting like a quiet sidekick, swung to the side. Balance betrayed him. His feet shuffled. Plates rattled on the floor. The face you get when you realize the plan has flipped. That's the instant regret face. Eyes widen. Mouth goes oh. The camera caught the exact millisecond his confidence drained out of him, and curiosity turned into, "Oh no." There was a collective sound in the gym, not quite a gasp, not quite a laugh. The audio in my head heard the perfect comedic sting. He tried to recover. He overcorrected. A small crash, a clatter, and then silence as everyone waited to see if this was humiliating or heroic. He set the mop down with an embarrassed laugh, rubbing his wrist like he'd been personally insulted by a cleaning tool. The slow-mo replay was merciless. His expression said, "Why did I accept that?" And that right there was the instant regret the title promised. But here's where we keep things classy. Nobody got hurt. No one was seriously injured. We checked quickly, made sure the guy was fine, and then the grin came back, because part of this was good-natured ribbing. The crowd exhaled, and laughter rolled like a tide. Ali shrugged, then laughed with us, which is important. This was not a public shaming. It was a social lesson wrapped in a prank. He later told me he enjoyed being proven wrong in public because it's rarer than you'd think to learn something with an audience. That's the beauty of these moments. People assume skill equals size, but often it's about rehearsal, attention to detail, and respect for mechanics. You don't out-muscle technique. I took the mop again and showed a slow carry, explaining in plain terms how to use the hips to stabilize, how to avoid the snap of the handle by controlling the eccentric. I joked, I taught, I made it look effortless, because that's the point of training, to make the hard look easy. After the reveal, I pulled off the cap, let the janitor act drop, and said, "Surprise! Janitor was a bit of a costume." Some chuckled, some pretended to be offended. Playing along is part of the fun. We talked openly. I introduced myself as Anatoly. People wanted to know about the moves, so I gave a brief, simple explanation. Consistent practice, proper bracing, and progressive overload done smartly. No secrets, no miracle promises, just the basics. A few folks asked about my program. When people want to know, I tell them straight. Many have seen results with the Anatoly Challenge, but results vary, and it takes discipline. That's the honest answer. I want to be clear about consent. After the stunt, Everyone signed off on being in the video and laughed about the moment. We didn't trick anyone into a dangerous situation. And to you watching this at home, don't try this exact stunt with heavy or unsecure objects. This was controlled and done with people who understood what we were doing. Train safely. There's a lesson that's worth more than the $200. Don't judge a book by its cover, or a janitor by his mop. The crowd left with an upbeat energy. Ali walked away smiling and a little wiser about underestimating people, and I had what I came for. A live reminder that technique beats theatrics. People asked me afterward how to get the same control I showed. I said the same thing I say on every screen and stage. Practice the basics, build incrementally, and respect your body. If you want that kind of coaching, there's a link below to the Anatoly Challenge. It's where I teach the foundations, movement patterns, programming, and how to apply training to real-life strength. Many have seen real transformations through consistent work. I won't promise miracles, but I will promise a plan backed by experience. Results vary. Train safely. Before we finish, if you laughed, if you cringed, if you want to see part 2 where Ali tries again, this time with proper coaching, hit like. That's the micro CTA I promised. It helps me know you want more of these real moments, where people learn and joke and nobody gets hurt. To wrap up, remember the little things matter. The mop wasn't the monster. The monster was arrogance. Technique is boring to talk about and beautiful to watch when it's working. If you enjoyed seeing a giant ego meet a simple lesson in physics, subscribe for more. Click the link in the description if you want to check out the Anatoly Challenge. I'll be honest with you about what to expect. And one more thing. Don't try to replicate our stunt at home. This was done with consent and oversight. If you want the strength without the risk, start slow, learn the basics, and if you're serious, follow a coach who values safe progress. Thanks for watching. Tell me in the comments, which gym stereotype do you want me to test next?